How you doing, everybody? I'm Ken Bykoff, and welcome to the Peegs Postgame Live. Indiana, 85-60 losers. That was awful, and let's talk about it. The Hoosiers fall by 25 points to the Iowa Hawkeyes in this one, and I got to tell you, this is it was wow, that was as not a good ball game. The Hoosiers shoot just 32% after halftime. 10-point deficit at the break. It was manageable. They got punched in the mouth early, and I'm not going to lie, I like the way that the Hoosiers responded along the way in that first half. Went back, managed to take a lead, used a 13-0 run, but Iowa was just too much for them. Too patient, too locked in, too good on the boards. All the things that the Hoosiers have been able to get away with against these lower quality teams that they've managed to come up with wins, the Hoosiers were not able to get away with as they faced the first of 11 straight quad one teams. The Hoosiers have now played 2 true road games on the year. They've gotten ripped in both of them. Lost to Nebraska, lost by 25 tonight to Iowa, give up 85 points, and this is where we're at. 812-393-2600 is the number. I want to hear from you. The lines are open, and this I just all the numbers all the way through. Indiana shoots 40% from the field overall. Just 4 of 16 from three-point range, 8 of 13 from the free throw line, 16 turnovers. 16. And I know Iowa turns people over a lot, but 4 from Umar Ballo, 4 from Trey Galloway. The Galloway mistakes just make me nuts. They absolutely make me nuts. He has played a lot of basketball, way too damn much basketball for him to make the silly mistakes that he does. He's a guy who's played a ton of basketball. To go on the road in this one, play 20 minutes, be held scoreless, have 4 turnovers, and they were all bad turnovers. It's just, you cannot have that from a guy who has played as much as he has. There wasn't a single bright spot for this Hoosier team at all tonight. Not all. Look at it, like Miles Rice, 12 points on 4 of 11 shooting in 36 minutes. Luke Goody was 1 of 6 from the floor. Umar Ballo, 10 points on 5 of 7 shooting, 13 rebounds. Only went to the free throw line once. He's on the road in the Big Ten. That's going to happen. Mackenzie Mbako, 6 points on 2 of 6 shooting, played just 16 minutes. Galloway was held scoreless. Then you talk about Bryson Tucker comes in and tries to give something. He gets 9 points on 4 of 11 shooting. Kanan Carlisle, 9 points on 4 of 12 shooting. Let's talk about Kanan Carlisle and the 12 shots. You're coming off the bench. I understand you maybe want to try to give your team a little bit of a boost. But damn, man. 12 shots. You lead the team in shots for a guy who has not been shooting the ball well. And you're going to hoist up 12 of them in 22 minutes? That's just extraordinary. And that is a level of looking out for yourself that is really just jaw-dropping. And Iowa was able to be more patient. All 5 starters score in double figures. Led by Sanford, 23 points on 7 of 12 shooting. Freeman had 12 rebounds. You had Harding hand out 10 assists. The Hawkeyes had 18 assists on 32 made baskets. Indiana, 15 assists on 24 made baskets, which is very nice. But, wow. 812-393-2600 is the number. I want to hear from you. And, we'll get, as we wait and hope for some calls to come in. Already on Twitter, somebody says, don't envy you, Ken. I'd get sick of taking calls demanding Mike Woodson's firing. There's nothing positive to talk about. Good luck. I had to say this a lot over the years, hosting the IU football call-in show. Not this year, but in previous years, where it's a real good thing. I was never the one that was taught by my mother that if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. Otherwise, we'd be a solid 60 minutes of silence, and that's not where we're at tonight. Michelle on the chat says, so disappointing. Reed says, our identity, in quotes, is that we don't play offensive sets, ever. We don't shoot threes. We play frantic with no purpose. And it's that last part about playing frantic with no purpose, I think that is really important. Because that's absolutely the case. But that isn't the case in just this game. Indiana was playing frantic and crazy and just way, way too fast in their win over USC, which I mentioned on the show, and people said I was old, and I needed to explain to them why being 13-3 at the time was a bad thing, that a win over USC was a bad thing, and the win wasn't the issue. It was USC is where they are, but with so many games against quality opponents coming up, being successful playing that way won't always work out. USC, by the way, somehow managed to knock off Illinois in Champaign today, which is jaw-dropping. But Indiana does play just way too frantic. So often it's just like, slow down, fellas. My God, I coach youth basketball over the years, and so often you have to tell kids, second and third graders, fourth and fifth graders, everybody slow down. Just slow down. Take your time. And that's what you need to tell this team. Just slow down. Because you play frantic. You're jerking up shots way too early in the shot clock. And then once you get behind by too much, there's no stopping it. I mean, those shots are going up, and nobody is going to be able to convince the guys that they need to run any kind of offense to be able to get back to having it within striking distance. You can't make up, you're down 16. You can't make it up with one shot or two. You have to build stack stops, get buckets, be patient, work your way back into it. Iowa's going to try to speed you up. It's what they do. And going into this game, you should have known that that's what they do, because that's what the coaching staff better have told you. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case for Indiana, and they got sped up in the second half, got confused defensively, gave up 42 points in the second half, which was actually better than the first half when Indiana gave up 43, but at least the Hoosiers were somewhat keeping pace, and in this one, that wasn't the case. Indiana outscored 42-27 in the second half. Iowa on the game shoots 54% overall, 46% from three-point range. Iowa scored 24 points off of Indiana turnovers. Indiana 16 turnovers. Out-rebounded the Hoosiers 37-31. Outscored them on second chance points 12-9. The Hoosiers outscored Iowa 29-12 when it comes to bench points, but that's only because Indiana didn't get anything from its starters. You had a combined 9 points from Luke Goody, Mackenzie Mbako, and Trey Galloway. Opponents matter. And Indiana did not exactly bathe itself in glory in this one. 812-393-2600. Please pick up the phone. Give me a call. I want to hear from you. Chances are that it's going to be a while before we get to hear from Mike Woodson. These things usually take a little bit of time, especially on the road, and especially after an ass kicking like this. He's not going to be excited to get to the mic to try to explain this one away. Chris on the chat says 15 games until Woodson's gone. Look, Indiana's 13-4 now. 4-2 in the Big Ten. And so the heat on Mike Woodson's chair, it's there. It's certainly there. Fans are very, very upset about it. And I know there are a lot of people who will sit there and outsiders, I would say, people who look at Indiana's record and say, well, they're 13-4. It's not, it's tough to win on the road in the Big Ten and all that. Well, by that same token, people who've actually been watching the program know that when Indiana plays a team with any kind of quality at all, that they've been running into not only just a little bit of problems, they haven't been competitive. Louisville beat the hell out of them. Gonzaga beat them. Bad. Nebraska beat them, solidly. Iowa and Iowa City. Iowa, a 25-point loss. That is the worst Big Ten loss in Mike Woodson's career here at IU in year 4. This isn't a part of a rebuild or anything like that. This is this team. This is it. It is what it is. 812-393-2600 is the number. We got our first caller. Caller, if you give me your name, where you're from, and what you got. Caller, can I hear you? All right, we have another caller. Your name, where you're from, and what you've got.
I'm from Prairie. You still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
I'm from Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin.
Hi, how are you doing?
All right, really good. I just listened to the Iowa guys tonight, and they did really awesome, and hope the girls can turn around and start winning too again, but really proud of the guys. They played awesome tonight.
Proud of the Iowa guys?
Yeah, Iowa Hawkeyes, yeah. Proud of the guys. You did real good tonight. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, they did. They certainly did. They beat the hell out of IU. So let's hear. I assume that you're an Iowa fan then.
I've been an Iowa Hawkeye fan since I was a kid. So I live in Wisconsin. I live down by Prairie du Chien.
Ah, okay.
So that's really awesome how he did. And I'm a big Iowa Hawkeye girls too. So, but when my dad was alive, he was a big Hawkeye fan too. But he passed away about 4 years ago. But yep, really good.
Well, congratulations on the win. I appreciate the call.
Well, thank you for having me on.
Thanks. Take care.
Goodbye.
Well, that's new. I haven't had one of those before. A caller from the opposing team. All right. 812-393-2600 is the number. I did have a call a little bit earlier. It didn't get him on off of mute quick enough until he did. So please give me a call. But that was interesting. Guy in Wisconsin calls to praise Iowa on an Indiana call-in show. Let's do it. It's Saturday. All right. 812-393-2600 is the number. Bob on the chat says players who don't care and a bad coach isn't a good combination. Here's the thing. I do think the players care about winning, that they want to win. I also think that they are at a point where everyone's trying to do too much. Everyone is, it continues to be a situation where you have 5 players on the floor instead of a team. And Indiana got by the past couple of games by feeding the ball to Ballo, letting him operate and really be dominant inside. There's nothing wrong with that. But you weren't getting enough consistent support from everybody around him. And that is certainly, where we're at with this ball club. You just have too much inconsistency from game to game. The veterans, like Galloway, are way too up and down. Mbako is in his head at this point and isn't producing. And so there's 2 of the guys that have been around for a little while that aren't able to go ahead and take care of this. You need your guy that came in from Illinois, who hit 10 of his last 15 3-pointers. He comes in, goes 1 of 4, and from 3, 1 of 6 overall. Played just 22 minutes and didn't give the Hoosiers much of anything. Miles Rice was going to the bucket trying to get to the rim. He did it a few times, but he wasn't able necessarily to finish as much as where it is. That is what is frustrating, is just where we're at with that. You have Michelle on the chat says, when we start out cold, we can't recover. Troika says, did Woody call any timeouts when the game was starting to get away? I fell asleep for a portion of the second half, and that's actually something that stood out to me. You had this Iowa team that was starting to really build its lead, go on a little bit of a run. You had early in the second half, Miles Rice hits a free throw with 18:56 left in the game. It's a 10-point game. Then you had a three by Peyton Sanford. Sanford, next time down, made a couple of free throws to push the lead to 15. Then he had another free throw that pushed to 16. Drew Thowell made a couple of free throws. It's 18 points. They get it gets up to 18. Nothing's happening. There's no timeout coming. Nothing at all. Ballo makes a layup, knocked down a three by Josh Dix with 16:11 to play, and it's a 19-point game at that point. It's gone from 10 to 19 in just a couple of minutes, and that is finally when there is a timeout called. That is really frustrating to watch, because I understand you don't want to use all your timeouts, but boy, that is a quick jump, a quick 9-0 run that saw a steal, saw even time for a substitution, and just let it go. And then it just built from there. It didn't slow down. It was 22, 25, and that was it. That was it. Andrew on the chat says $5 says Woody says I need to get him over the hump in his postgame. I love those kind of things, because that's a verbal tick that he has. Different coaches have different things. Tom Crean talked about how he had to go watch the tape. Kevin Wilson talked about having dudes, and guys weren't injured. They had a gig, or they had a thing. He also opened every single one of his press conferences by saying, "What you got?" Which is kind of what I've stolen with the callers. So I could say, it's your name, where you're from, and what you got. Cloudy Jungle Shovel, great name, on the chat says, Woodson deserves another year, and then later on says, we always have excuses. Other programs could win with less resources. Indiana is no longer a winning program. In terms of record, they're a winning program, but it's been a real long time since Indiana has been any kind of consistent at all, and certainly consistent in battling for the top spot in the Big Ten. Now, obviously, in the standings right now, they're still towards the top, but there's a lot of work to be done and a lot of flaws in this team. And, at some point, it has to be acknowledged along the way that the standard that was set by Indiana a long, long time ago just is not being upheld by a lot of the current players, the current program. Again, they've won 13 games. 11 of them were against quad 3 or 4 teams. Now you have 11 straight against quad 1s. And what happens when you play a quad 1 team like Iowa at their place? You better be ready to play, otherwise you're going to lose by 25. And that's exactly what happened. You had Iowa be able to record 11 steals because Indiana was not disciplined. Lazy passes. Easy mental mistakes. That's the frustrating part for me. If you are just not quick enough, that's one thing. If you are just not locked in enough mentally, that is something completely, completely different. You look at these plus-minus numbers for these guys. Miles Rice, minus 21. Luke Goody, minus 36. Trey Galloway, minus 28. And Kenzie Mbako, minus 24 in just 16 minutes. That's amazing. Only 2 guys were plus on the plus side of the plus-minus tonight. Anthony Leal, plus 8 in 21 minutes, and Bryson Tucker, plus 3 in 23 minutes. 812-393-2600 is the number. The lines are open. Lynn says on the chat, we just seem so unorganized every game in a rush. Hope the administration sees this as well. Tried to root for Coach Woodson, but no, that's not the answer. Look, this is a pivotal season, to say the least, for Indiana basketball. These next few weeks are really going to show where this program is headed. You know, the Hoosiers have somewhat been spinning their wheels. And I know at the end of last year, there was a lot of frustration with Woodson. And then, you know, you had the senior night, true fans comment, and him believing that he's done everything he was brought here to do. Right now, sitting at 13 and 4, he's going to be like, hey, winning on the road in the Big Ten's hard. It just is. And he's not wrong about that. But you got to be competitive. You got to show up to play. And Indiana definitely did not do that here on Saturday night. And where you are in terms of where this team can go from here is that it's not going to get any easier. We ran through this a little bit the other day. Talk about the 11 quad one games coming up. Well, they got beat by 25 in this first one. They're going to face Illinois on Tuesday. Coming into Simon Scott Assembly Hall, having just lost to a bad USC team. So you think they're going to be focused? The next Friday, the Hoosiers go to Ohio State to take on the Buckeyes, and then they have Northwestern in Evanston, which Northwestern has given them fits over the years. And if you get into a situation where you've dropped 3 straight, you're really going to be pressing against the Wildcats, and that's going to be a struggle. Then Maryland will come here January 26th. They got to go to Purdue and Wisconsin January 31st and February 4th. Said this after the last game, even though they had played 5 Big Ten games, the preseason was over. Non-conference season was over because the real season was starting. And they came into this game halfway through the season, 13-3. It's 32 games on the season, I think it is. And they have a long way to go. Cloudy on the chat says, we're kings of the preseason, have been for years. We think a win is a win, and that isn't the case. I say this every show. I said it for years on the football show, that it's not how, it's how many. And I still believe that you have to win the ball games. How you win it isn't necessarily as important as the fact that you do win, but you can start to project out what the team is going to look like. And that's why even as they were stacking these wins over whether it be Winthrop or Rutgers or USC, I thought they actually played pretty well at Penn State. They played a lot better than they had. You could see that if they played a team that could control the tempo, that could make Indiana frantic in a bad way, that was poised enough to stack stops, the Hoosiers might be in a lot of trouble, and that's where they are. This is not a good three-point shooting team. Now, Indiana has had games where they've shot a bunch, but that doesn't mean they're good shots. And when your best three-point shooters aren't knocking things down, you're in a lot of trouble. Luke Goody, 1 of 4 tonight. Mackenzie Mbako, 0 of 3. It's rough. Now, Claudia on the chat just said, I'd like to know what our record is after the first 10 or 12 games in the last 10 years. Most teams, because they're playing directional schools, most teams at Indiana's level, hell, in the Big Ten level, have pretty good records after 10 games. So that isn't necessarily, that's part of a strategy. It's you know the Big Ten is going to be a gauntlet every single year. So what you do is you schedule almost guaranteed wins early in the season. You try to challenge yourself a little bit along the way, but it is about being able to get W's, almost guaranteed W's, just to kind of stack them. I know when Tom Crean was here, His focus was getting to 20 wins, which means he wanted 10 or 12 wins at least before they got to Big Ten play. Because that way, if you win 8 or 10 Big Ten games, you win a little over half your Big Ten games, you're going to the tournament. And so it's a strategy. It's a strategy. And so I wouldn't jump on them too much about that non-conference schedule being weak. But the problem is when Indiana has played worthwhile opponents, that's when they've really run into problems. So you can fatten yourself up on the likes of UNC Greensboro and Eastern Illinois. But when you actually play somebody who is somewhat near your level, that's when you're going to run into trouble. And you go to the Bahamas, obviously, and Indiana loses one of the games by 28. Another game, they lose by 16. They beat Providence by 14, a Providence team that played the night before the late game and then played the early game the next day. That's why I was so very concerned about a 9-point win over Chattanooga, a 9-point win over Winthrop. Those are teams that you're supposed to be just hammering right off the bat, and that isn't what happened. Even a Rutgers team, which this Rutgers team might be the worst team Indiana has played the entire season. Indiana only won by 10. I was fully expecting them to get whipped in Philadelphia against Penn State, and they didn't. They managed to get the job done, but it gets a lot tougher. It ain't going to get easier. 812-393-2600 is the number. Pick up the phone or join our chat. I want to hear from you. Some of the people on the on Twitter, sure not. One guy says you are right after last game. Don't listen to these jokers. Doesn't work against Iowa. I talked about it after the USC game, how Indiana got away with a lot of stuff because of who they were playing, and they were gonna struggle against Iowa. I'm not here to pound my chest and say that I told you so. That isn't what I'm here for. It's just I've been watching basketball a long time. I've been covering the Hoosiers for a long time, and that to me is you kind of see a lot of these flaws and know which teams are going to be a bit of a problem. And Iowa gives Indiana fits normally. And that's the other thing. Indiana fans, there have been a lot of years, a long, long time since Indiana has just been, go to Iowa and win the ball game. And you don't have to worry too much about Iowa. This has been a pure competitor. Indiana has not been, one of those elite teams in the Big Ten for any kind of consistent time in years. And so what I think a lot of us have, and I know I'm not alone on this, is you have a lot of people who remember Indiana through Indiana 1.0, which is what I call it, before Kelvin Sampson was fired, or I'm sorry, resigned, whatever. And then it was torn down, and you were left with Brett Finkelmeyer and Kyle Tabor. And since then, it's what I call Indiana 2.0. They wear the same uniform. They have the same tradition. They play in the same building, but the institutional knowledge from year to year did not get passed on. It was almost like an expansion team. And now as the years have built, because let's face it, it's now 17, 18 years since that happened, there just hasn't been enough success consistently to rebuild that tradition. And so I do think that there may well be a difference in how younger kids view Indiana versus longtime Indiana fans, because the results have not matched the reputation that a lot of the older guys have. That is, and because it's you forget how long it's been since Indiana has been consistently good. it seems to some of us that 2002 wasn't that long ago. But I would remind everybody that 2002 means that you could have been born that year and you would be a junior or senior at Indiana University. That's a whole generation since Indiana's been to a Final Four. They've had a couple of trips to the Sweet 16, and that's it. So the younger kids, it's just a lot different. It's just another program. Indiana, to all of us, is just, to the older people, there's two factions there. There just is. 812-393-2600. Line is open. I want to hear it. I want to hear it. Let's see. We have a question on the chat about Woodson's buyout. And I'm more than happy to talk about that. Let's see. In March of 2024, Zach Osterman from the Indianapolis Star said that, let's see, the buyout, let's see, under terms of the original contract, Woodson would have owed 100% of the remaining compensation, owed 100% of the remaining compensation through March of 2025 and 50% thereafter. So now, in addition to the raise that he got in 2023, Woodson also gained an extra year of full compensation. Indiana would now owe all the remaining guaranteed compensation, roughly $8.4 million, in reducing monthly through March 30th, 2026. So that compensation is quite a bit right now. We got a call. Excited caller, if I can hear your name, where you're from, and what you got.
Hello?
Yeah, caller. How you doing?
Yeah, this is Troy from Elkhart.
Hi, Troy. How you doing? How's Elkhart? You staying warm?
Not warm enough. And I'm Troika on the
okay. Thanks for calling.
Chat. Yeah, I had too much to say. I'd rather say it over the phone than type it out.
Please do.
But I just, the losses we've had, not just this season, but at certain parts of last season, are embarrassing. How many times do we lose to Nebraska over the last 2 years, 2 seasons, and we don't seem to have any answer for that. And it's the games like this. I just figure, any good coaching staff would call a timeout and find a way to reset, make in-game adjustments or halftime adjustments, and it just doesn't seem like it's happening. So I don't know. That's just one thing I think a good coach and coaching staff can come up with. Something. It doesn't matter who's on your roster. They can figure out a way to get the best out of their players. And for what we're paying this head coach and his staff, and it's not just him, but it's the previous coaching staff as well. You'd figure we'd get a better performing team overall.
I think you mentioned about not calling the timeout, and as this lead is growing, and there's a lot of I think a lot of fans, Indiana basketball fans, tend to know their basketball, and as we're watching, you're going, call a timeout, you got to bust this up, call a timeout, and it doesn't happen. Just from you as a fan, how frustrated do you get while you're watching when he should be calling it, there should be a timeout called, and you got nothing going on?
I'll age myself here, probably a little bit older than, some of the other fans on the chat and whatnot listening to the show, but I graduated in '98, and I was in Coach Knight's basketball class in the fall of '97, and he had the three things that makes a winning team, or that he tries to do, is you take good shots, you don't turn the ball over, and you make it hard for the other team to shoot. And there's a bunch of subcategories underneath that, but we don't play defense, so we don't play defense as good as we have, sort of like you were saying, the Sampson years and prior to that. Seems like we played, better defense, more competitive defense, and the players for the most part knew if it was a good time to take a good shot or not. Whether it's what time in the shot clock are we at, and also just is it a good shot for a given player. It seems like we're playing AAU ball on a lot of teams in the more recent years, and it's just like I said, going back to those three things from, like I said, I'm not a basketball expert, but I've watched enough to in high school and college, and I know enough to see what looks good and what doesn't. A lot of teams in the more my main thing was a good coach knows how to make an in-game or halftime adjustments, and I just haven't seen it from Woody in a while. And we've got plenty of talent on this roster, not just this year but the years before. So the amount of losses we have, that's just so embarrassing.
Can't argue with anything you just said. Can't argue with anything you just said at all. I mean, it is, there are plenty of resources. There's plenty of talent. It ain't the talent that's the problem. It isn't a lack of resources. It is a lack of people playing together and any kind of consistency coming from the roster or the bench. I don't argue that at all.
Yeah.
Really appreciate the call, Troika. You try to stay warm up there in Elkhart, and, hopefully the Hoosiers will be able to get it together. Thanks so much for the call.
Yes, sir. Appreciate everything you do.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Yep.
812-393-2600 is the number. Please go ahead and give me a call. We have another caller in the queue. Call up and give me your name, where you're from, and what you got.
My name is Bill, and I want to talk a little bit about IU basketball, but not necessarily the same sense that most callers are calling in about. I called you the last time I talked with you was during 2023, during the football season. This year was so great, I didn't have to call you. As a matter of fact, let me say this too, that I think if IU can really become a good football program for a period of time, there may be a whole lot less interest in basketball because it's so disappointing to listen to. I tried to watch the game tonight and I had to turn it off. It was so pathetic. But that's not really what I wanted to talk about. One of the things that really gripes me, and oh, by the way, I'm in my 80s and I've been an IU fan probably at least 70 years. So I'm a little older, a lot older than most of the people who talk to you. But bothers me are the cheerleaders. Now, this sounds silly, but they do because they have the same cheers all the time. IU, IU. I'm an IU fan. I don't need to hear that all the time. And they have a couple other cheers. And when the crowd is really quiet, that's all you can hear. So it's I'm probably the only person that's bothered by that. But it is so annoying. And there was something else I was going to talk to you about. I said I was in my 80s, so it's a little slow here. What was I going to say? You know what? I forget what it is, so I'm just going to shut up and hang up.
Well, I appreciate the call. Thank you so much. And, with the cheerleaders, it's a game day experience that I've heard plenty of people talk about and struggle with. And So you're not alone on that kind of thing.
No.
The overall game experience, the band playing a lot of the same songs, all of that, that's all part of it. And for people who are going to the games year after year after year, yeah, you certainly notice it. Now the IU, I'll explain. I'll admit this much: I haven't noticed that, but mostly because I've been doing this for 20 years and I kind of tune them out. But I understand where you're coming from. That's all part of the experience.
Yeah.
And if Indiana was winning and being really successful, you probably would notice it. But it's just one more thing on the pile right now.
I wouldn't be able to hear him if IU was cheering a lot. But I'm not going to give up. I've been an IU fan for too long. I'm not going to give up. But
Yep.
I am really, really disappointed in the basketball for several. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I think another thing that I cannot understand is we've got those championship banners hanging in Assembly Hall. The last one, including this year, will be 3 years ago. And I wonder what people come in there and somebody says, oh, they were national champs in 38 years ago. Well, my grandfather can remember that, but I have no memory of it. And I think they ought to take those down, put them in Cook Hall, keep them. They're fine to have. But get the old stuff out and just start playing and earning some new things. I don't think anybody's going to follow my suggestions, but that's what I feel about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it really is those banners. We have 5 of them, but they're dusty. They're dusty as can be. And I understand wanting to trumpet all that. And certainly everybody, trumpets the 76 team, which was now almost 50 years ago. And again, this is where if you are a freshman at IU and you were born at this point in like 2006, 2007, seeing something that is from 1987 might as well be 1908.
That's right.
So many kids, it is, and not hell, adults are the same way, that they think the world started the day they were born. And so those kind of things are nice. Indiana has so much tradition that they stick with, from the warm-ups to the candy stripes to the Martha the Mop Lady that everybody weirdly stands up for. An old insurance commercial is what she was. And they stand up like it's they're in church. It is all part of it. And so those banners aren't going anywhere, but I agree. Indiana hangs a lot of its reputation and feelings on those banners, but it's been a while and it's beyond time for a move toward hanging a new one of those. This is something that some people don't agree with me on. And when he got fired, he deserved it. Don't get me wrong. The Indiana did the right thing in firing Kelvin Sampson. But if Sampson would have been able to stay out of trouble, I firmly believe there would be number 6 or 7 hanging there.
Yeah, well, I think maybe you're right about that. I was a freshman at IU in 1960. That was before the beginning of time, almost for most people. And I was a IU fan long before that. So it doesn't hurt physically, but it hurts my mind and my emotions to see they're not playing well.
I understand completely.
There are thousands of students have gone through IU and great professors and all kinds of. There's got to be a lot of people on the Bloomington campus who have all kinds of really great ideas how to shake some of this stuff up that is, like you said, has dust all over it. And hopefully that'll help, and maybe some other people feel a little bit like I do.
Well,
okay, go ahead.
I appreciate the call, and I absolutely believe that there are plenty of people out there that are listening to you and just shaking their head, agreeing, nodding their head, and agreeing with you completely.
I am so disappointed that I can hardly wait for football season to start.
That's a great feeling though, isn't it?
Oh, isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, that it is.
I'm going to let you go. Thanks for talking.
All right. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it.
Okay, bye.
Take care. What a great call. 812-393-2600 is the number. Troika, who just gave us a call, I appreciate that. He said, agree 100% on Sampson. 2 more banners by now. look, Indiana fired Kelvin Sampson, and they should have. He should have. That program was at a level that Indiana fans don't want to root for when it comes to the behind-the-scenes stuff that was going on. Again, he got fired for text messages the way Al Capone got sent to prison for tax evasion. But X's and O's, that guy knew what he was doing. And I fully believe that Indiana since then has been looking for a coach who could be like Kelvin Sampson, who had plenty of accountability, who had a process of what he wanted to see on the court, was consistent with it, and wanted to and knew what was going to work, what was going to help him win, and had confidence in it. And the Hoosiers haven't had that since Sampson was fired. Even Tom Crean changed the way they played several times over the years. Archie Miller didn't work. Just didn't work. I was happy with that hire. It just did not work. Mike Woodson, I was less happy with, but was willing to keep an open mind to see how it would come by. I've always been bothered that he would never, ever be the head coach if it wasn't for the fact that he went to school here, which is not a good enough reason to hire somebody as a head coach. And the results have not come close to matching what you want to see for a guy that is getting the kind of money that he is and is has the resources that he has and the talent that he has. It's just not coming together. And I'm not trying to overreact about a 13-4 team that lost on the road in the Big Ten. It's that Indiana struggles to be competitive when they play teams that are basically at their level or higher. That is the challenge. So just really struggling with this team. 812-393-2600 is the number. I want to hear from you. Hoping to get some Mike Woodson audio before we get out of here. That usually will take a little while to get. Not sure how quickly it'll come in from Iowa. So it might be a situation where we end up having to tack it in into the recording if you're listening to this on the podcast, because after the show's over, it goes right into the Peegs podcast feed relatively quickly. So it might be a situation where I'll wait for that, and then you can listen to Woodson in the morning. But what I wonder about is how different that press conference is going to be tonight as opposed to what we have heard over and over and over again from Mike Woodson over the years. Forget about this year, over the years. That to me is what it keeps coming back to for me. Is we're running out of hearing new things from Mike Woodson. The way Indiana plays, the way, all about words, all of that. It's just, it's got to be better. It's got to be better, plain and simple. And instead, it's not. We keep seeing the same type of game over and over and over again. And that, to me, is the struggle. 812-393-2600 is the number. Lines are open. Again, hope to hear from Mike Woodson. But if we got to throw it in the post game, in the recording, this is where it would go if you're listening on the recording. Listening live, obviously, I can't just drop it in right now. But that to me is, he's running out of new ways to say the same thing. And there's not a whole lot of good answers that are coming Indiana's way at this point. And it's a concern because the schedule does not get any easier whatsoever. 812-393-2600 is the number. IU has highlights up on their shared media folder, but no pressers just yet. You know, if you're looking for a star of the game for Indiana, you're going to struggle to find it. Again, it'd probably be Ballo, 10 points on 5 of 7 shooting, 13 rebounds. But he was not as dominant as we've seen him. And you know what? Here's maybe the most disturbing thing about this game is you lose by 25. But here's my question for you, and I'd love to hear on the chat what you think about this, or give me a call. If Malik Renew is available for this game, obviously he's banged up, he can't play. It is what it is. If Renew is on the floor, how much do you think it would have changed this game? I think we all can agree Indiana has been playing much better with one big on the floor than the two of them. And Renew is obviously very, very important. But would it have been enough to make this a competitive game? I'm not so sure. With the way Indiana was sloppy with the ball, turning things over, playing lackadaisical on defense, I'm not sure Renew does enough to bend the curve. And that is a concern for me. It's huge that he's out. It hurts, obviously. But did Indiana miss him tonight to the point that they would have been competitive if he was here? And I'm not convinced that that's the case. It's not a knock on Malik. It's just as a group, it wasn't a matter of one guy in this one. You're missing him, and it's rough. But, boy, I don't think it had been enough to make a difference. 812-393-2600 is the number. You get to a point where you have to go ahead and look at what goes on the sideline with the coaches. And here's the key with that is you have across the parking lot, you have a historically bad program with the IU football program that has suddenly come to life and is amazing. And I felt this during the year, that the success Curt Cignetti had with the football team kind of shines a little bit of a brighter light on what's going on on the basketball side, because they have been so mediocre and disappointing along the way with the resources that fans were going to look over there and say, hey, Mike Woodson, you know, this guy's been here for a year, and look what just happened. Why aren't we farther along in a sport that's honestly a little bit easier to turn around? You get the right guys in the right combination, and you can go quickly, turn a basketball program around. For football, it's a lot harder. Now, it's easier, obviously, with the transfer portal and everything that goes like that. But the transfer portal is what brought Miles Rice here, and Luke Goody, and Umar Ballo, and Kanan Carlisle. And so 60% of your starting lineup came in the transfer portal. You got a lot of resources mixed in there, and we are more than halfway through the season, so certainly nobody wants to hear, well, our guys are still trying to figure things out. I'm concerned about Mackenzie Mbako and his 6 points tonight. You look at Mbako and what he has done so far this season, and he's been really, really interesting. He just seems like he is in his head, plain and simple. In his head. Because if you look at his points, he had 6 tonight. He did not score against USC earlier this week. So in his last 5 games, let's talk about the Big Ten games. 13 points against Minnesota, 2 points against Nebraska, 16 points against Rutgers, 20 against Penn State, 0 against USC, 6 against Iowa. And you're starting to get to a situation where he had 2 points in 14 minutes against Nebraska, 0 points in 15 minutes against Southern California, 6 points in 16 minutes. This is a starter. This is a guy that was, was Big Ten Freshman of the Year last year. First among freshmen in points per game. When you go into your sophomore year, you're supposed to develop and come along and get better along the way. And instead, at least in conference play, you have Mackenzie Mbako with 12.8 points overall is where he is with that. But from a scoring standpoint, Mbako in the Big Ten is averaging, let's see, I'm trying to find he's down to 9.5 points a game. And that just is not going to get it done. And it's starting to become a trend for Mackenzie. And like I said, it's a real concern. There's a lot of real concerning things going on with this team. 812-393-2600 is the number. Disappointing night, and it doesn't get easier. And so again, it's just very curious to me where the Hoosiers are going to go and how they're going to be able to straighten things out. Now, you come back home, you beat Illinois, you build a little bit of momentum, go to Ohio State, string together a couple of wins, and all of a sudden people feel a lot better. The problem is stringing together quality 40 minutes of basketball hasn't been a trait of this team. And that to me is one of the challenges that you run into with this ball club, because it's just that inconsistency that kills you. And I know that Mike Woodson was trying to find some kind of mix that would work. The Hoosiers went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players deep with this. No, 9 players deep. Everybody played at least 16 minutes. Only one starter, Miles Rice, played more than 24 minutes. He played 36 minutes. He was out there most of the game. 5 assists, had 3 turnovers in 36 minutes. Tried to get to the bucket as much as he could, but you can only do so much. And he ended up 4 of 11 shooting. And the Hoosiers just 13 shots from the free throw line, which you're on the road where you're playing. That's something that you have to pay attention to. Indiana did not get a lot of the calls that maybe they sometimes get inside and at Assembly Hall. But I also don't think refs were the problem in this one in any way, shape, or form. And that to me is what is a worry, to say the least. Because does this team have the mental toughness to bounce back and be able to come back and tie it in and lock in for Illinois that they play in 3 days? I don't know. They surprised me against Penn State. Maybe they'll surprise me this time around. But when it comes to tonight's performance, I wasn't surprised by this. I thought they would lose this game at Iowa. A 25-point loss seemed unlikely. I was expecting more, about 14. But I know that the spread was Iowa was favored by 5.5, and I thought that was a really low number. But I'm not a gambler, so I didn't go after that. But Troika on the chat says, do you think the staff has developed players as expected? I see one or two every year, but as a team as a whole, I'd say no. Both offensive and defensive development, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Is there a player on this team that's been around who is substantially better this year than they were when they got here? Now, the weird thing with that is there ain't that many guys. We're talking about Mbako. We're talking about Galloway, Leal, and that's it that played today. Think about that, folks. Miles Rice, Luke Goody, Umar Ballo, Bryson Tucker, Kanan Carlisle, Lincoln Hatton, all those guys. 5 of the 8 who played tonight were not here last year. Can't get any kind of consistency with that, and I know partially that is just the college basketball world at this point. But in terms of development from year to year, I have not seen it, no. The guys that have gotten better over time, a guy like Trace Jackson Davis, first off, wasn't a Mike Woodson recruit, and he was already developing and on that upward swing before Woodson ever got here. So no, that absolutely isn't the case. And furthermore, this is not a program that has historically been a lot better in February than it was in November. This team has always felt, this program under Mike Woodson has always felt like what you see in November is 80% of what you will see in March. They can be too reliant on a single player. Balance, when Indiana's playing well, they have balance, but balance and inconsistency can go hand in hand sometimes, which is what we're looking at with this year's team. Because one game you get a ton out of Luke Goody. The next he's 1 of 6. You have Miles Rice has a really bad game, comes back and has a good game, but the next game he's down. Galloway is up. So there's guys that are going up and down every game. And so it allows you never know who's going to be the guy, but you also never know who's going to be the guy. And that's a concern. Last call for phone calls, 812-393-2600. We'll go ahead and let you go as we move into the 11 o'clock hour here on a Saturday night. Really appreciate you joining me. Appreciate the calls that I've gotten. Hate to see Indiana turn in this kind of performance because, if they had gone to Iowa and turned something in, now you're thinking, all right, they're at 14 wins already. They've proven they could beat a team of Iowa's caliber. That doesn't mean that Iowa's caliber is a real high caliber to run with, but at the very least, Iowa is considered a solid team. And I don't know anybody that really watches Indiana that goes, okay, no, they're a solid team. Now, to not overreact, Indiana is 4-2 in the Big Ten. They're not 2-4. So those early wins certainly helped quite a bit. They're 13-4 on the season. Haven't lost at Assembly Hall. But Iowa is a ball club that came in at just 500, and they just boat raced Indiana. Just absolutely ripped them. And it doesn't get easier because now you have an angry, ranked Illinois team coming in next time out. And, it's not that Ohio State is any kind of juggernaut. They're 10-6. They're nothing special at all either, but they have a win over a ranked team this year. And they usually give them some trouble. So we'll see. Disappointing night at Iowa City for the Hoosiers. 85-60 is the defeat. Live show. We have not gotten any audio from Mike Woodson. And, hold up. It just came in. So give me just a second. All right. You're going to get to hear from Mike Woodson after all. Man, you hang around long enough. Maybe you go ahead and get it. Let's see here. All right. Mike Woodson. I have not heard this audio. I have no idea how good it's going to sound. But let's see what we got. Here's Mike Woodson during his post-game press conference following Indiana's 85-60 loss at Iowa tonight. It looks like Miles Rice is with us.
Yeah, Coach, I guess.
Is this already lit?
Yeah, that's good right there.
Okay.
Big picture, I mean, offense was most concerning. Defense was most concerning. When there's a margin like this and this many things go wrong, what are the things that you're looking at as the things that bother you the most?
Well, going into this game, we've been playing some pretty good basketball. And when you go out on the road in the Big Ten, you can't turn it over. You got to rebound with your opponent, and you got to make shots. And we failed in all three areas tonight. And that's something you can't have when you go out on the road. So we got to be better.
There's another flick. Did you feel the effort was lacking?
No, I thought we got off to a slow start, but I thought our second unit came in and got us back in it. But when you have 17 points given to them based on us just hand delivering the basketball, you're not going to be very many teams in the Big Ten doing that. I thought we played pretty solid in the half-court defense. You know, we gave up 26 points, but they scored 43 and 17 of those came from our turnovers. And good teams like Iowa, you're not going to get away with that.
Daniel, then Mike.
And like last kind of month or so, it kind of feels like you guys have reached a new higher level. How surprised are you that you guys kind of stepped the wrong way tonight?
Well, again, I mean, you don't go out on the road. Our last road game was with Penn State, and I thought we competed from the very beginning to the end. Tonight, we look totally different, and we can't have games like that when we get out on the road. I mean, you got to consistently put yourself in a position where you got a shot and winning a basketball game, and we didn't give ourselves a chance tonight.
Mike and Zion.
Yeah, Coach, Umar had like 4 turnovers in the first 4 or 5 minutes. You yanked him out. What do you think was going on with him, and what did you say to him?
Well, again, I mean, Ballo's been playing pretty well for us, and tonight he was doing things that he hadn't been doing in this 5-game stretch. And it wasn't just Ballo, it was everybody had a hand in it, especially in that starting group. So, I mean,
Zion and Jack.
Mike, 26 points in transition for Iowa tonight. Just why do you think you guys aren't able to keep up with their pace?
well, first of all, throwing it away didn't help. The turnovers didn't help. And then not getting back, I thought our shot selection was terrible tonight. I mean, we just, they played the matchup zone, which I thought we executed once we got back in it, but then we just one pass and freeze with the basketball, and that's something that we just can't do, not against good teams.
Jack in the background.
Yeah, Miles, I guess defensively, does it feel like the team is disconnected out there at all tonight, or how do you kind of fix that moving forward?
Nah, it's just hard to play defense when you turn the ball over a lot. And, they have a lot of advantages, and that's what I'm saying. We turned the ball over a good amount of times tonight, so they were able to get out. Like he said, we spotted the point, so that already puts us in that hole. And so, like I said, it's hard to be in a set defense or play together when we turn the ball over so much.
Background.
You've had a lot of roster change going into this year. It takes some time to develop that chemistry in a league like this and against a schedule like you play. Where do you think you are chemistry-wise as a team? Are you approaching where you want it to be? Is this just a minor setback, or is this something that causes you concern?
Well, again, I'll never use that as an excuse. We do have new players. There's no doubt about that. But the whole country, college basketball, and all sports have new players, and how quickly you put it together and mash together as a team will determine your opportunity to win at a high level. And we've been playing good basketball. I can't sit here and complain. Our last 5 games were very competitive, and against some good teams. So, you know, we got to go back and regroup because the Big Ten's not going anywhere. We got Illinois coming in here soon. So, I mean, we got a couple of days to prepare for them. And it starts tomorrow at 5 o'clock in practice.
Last 2 years, Zach and then Dan. Miles, 16 turnovers tonight. You guys are taking care of the ball well recently. What was the difference tonight?
I think we just played uncharacteristically, you know. Like you said, during the 5-game stretch, we were playing really good basketball, holding on to it. And I think tonight we just got a little bit outside of ourselves. Like you said, we started off slow, and then kind of like it was like an avalanche a little bit. So one thing led to another, and it kept on going all night.
Last question, Dave.
Yeah, I want to say, Miles, you mentioned a few weeks ago that talent-wise, you feel like you guys have a chance to be one of the more explosive offenses out there. Is there a reason you can kind of look at and see for why you guys have some of the long scoring drives you guys have?
Like I started from the beginning of the game, turn the ball over. I mean, that kind of like puts you in your head, like, okay, now we have to, you know, get those plays back. And it's kind of hard to, you know, try to do that and be in your same flow. But, I mean, it happens. But, like I said, we just got to be better from the start and be able to play all the way through all 40 minutes.
Thank you.
So there's Mike Woodson during his post-game press conference. A couple of different things stood out there. Again, he talked about having so many new players and says every college team does. Well, every college team seems to be, you know, playing a lot more solid than what they have. He also said something he said he thought that the last 5 games that Indiana has been playing pretty good basketball against some pretty good teams. Now, what he's talking about there is since the 5-game winning streak that Indiana was on, when they beat Chattanooga by 9 points, Winthrop by 9 points, Rutgers by 10 points, Penn State by 8 points, and USC by 13. We were competitive against good teams. I could look up Chattanooga's record and Winthrop's record, but I can also look up Rutgers, the 8-8 Rutgers Scarlet Knights, who are 1-4 in the Big Ten. Penn State, which is 12-4, 2-3. He's right. Penn State has been good, and Indiana was surprisingly good against them on a neutral court. It counts as a road game, but the Palestra is not on the campus at Penn State. It's there, but it's in Pennsylvania, but it's a couple hours away. USC is 10-6 overall, 2-3 in the Big Ten. So I would hardly call them a good team. They were not. Winthrop, the Winthrop Eagles are 12-7 in the overall, 2-2 in the Big South Conference. I'd be careful what I do with them. And Chattanooga is 9-7 overall and 1-2 in the Southern Conference. So yeah, that's great. You won 5 games in a row, and you want to say I thought we played pretty good basketball there. I will argue with you about whether Indiana was playing really good basketball or even good basketball along that way. But you play, they won the games, so that's good. They should, because they were more talented than those teams. Save for, again, the Penn State game was impressive. They did a nice job. But you go to Iowa, you get hammered on the road by 25 points. Man, that's a lot more than us just having a bad night. And again, Illinois, a pissed-off Illinois team comes to town. Then you go to Ohio State, you got Northwestern, you got Maryland. Quality teams that have given you problems along the way. So a lot to fix for the Hoosiers. Can they do it? We will see. Coming back to Assembly Hall is certainly a positive, but gets back to it Tuesday. Like I said, preseason's over. The real season just started, and it started with a loss to Iowa in a game that the Hoosiers just simply were not competitive in at all, really, for the most part. And here we are. I want to thank all the callers who called in tonight. Really appreciate their thoughts and what it was that they had to say Always appreciate our callers. Love it when the screen lights up for me. Want to hear from more of you. Thank you so much for being involved in the chat too. That means a lot to me. This show's for you guys, and I will do it. And love bringing it to you. I don't want to spend all the time talking to myself, so I love hearing from you. Looking forward to hearing from you after the Illinois game. I'll do the thing where you could like and subscribe on YouTube, and I'm trying to figure out how to put this thing on Twitter or X or whatever the hell it's called now, on Twitter and on Facebook and all of that along the way, all at the same time. Tried to do that after the USC game. It was a spectacular failure, and so that wasn't great, but we'll keep working on it because I love talking to you guys, and I love breaking down these games afterwards. Well, that's all the time we have on the Peegs Postgame Live. I want to thank you for listening. I want to remind you to visit Peegs.com for the very best in IU football and basketball coverage you're going to find anywhere. Nobody covers Hoosier recruiting better than Jeff Rabjohns, Matt Weaver, Trevor Andershock, and Jared Kelly. So come be a part of a thriving and exciting community at Peegs.com. Folks, you are not going to be disappointed. Folks, we're out of time. But for now, and for Jeff, Matt, Trevor, and Jared, I'm Ken Bykoff saying thanks for listening, everybody.